Hey everybody, Charles Szczepanek here. Welcome to Pianist Academy and another live stream. It's good to see Bedlington Groomer and C Drive, Nancy, Lori, and Jess. Thanks so much. So let's see, 5 of you. We have 8 people right now tuned in. So if you haven't said hi, please drop a line in the chat. It would be great to know who's here, who's tuning in. Thanks to the 5 of you for saying hello. How is everybody doing? How is your practice going? What are you working on? I just got back from a concert weekend in Phoenix, Arizona. I played Friday night. Seems like a long time ago. But yeah, been busy with that. So how is everybody doing? Today is a completely open day. Open to any of your questions, anything you'd like to discuss. Music, theory, technique, listening, anything. So, hey, Sandy. Greetings. So, those of you that are here, feel free. Do you have a question? Do you have something that's been burning a hole in your brain about the music you've been working on? Anything you'd want to discuss? Drop it in the chat. For those of you who are, C Drive, hey, for a very chilly day in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Hey, C Drive, Fort Wayne. Do you ever go to, is Sweetwater's headquarters there? And have you ever been? I feel like, yeah, Sweetwater is a really big music distributor across they distribute everywhere across the United States. And I think that's where they're located. They have a couple studios there that I've just seen pictures of. I'd love to go and visit. Nancy, you say practice has been sporadic. Migraines. I'm sorry, Nancy. Chopin's Heart. Welcome, Chopin's Heart. How do you know if a piece is too difficult for you? Wonderful. We'll start with that question. Chopin's Heart. What kind of music have you been playing? Because the answer I'm going to give, I think, will be a little bit dependent on what you have accomplished so far in your piano and musical journey. So let me know what's some repertoire you've recently studied. Have you performed anything in the last year? What is it? It could be anything. Just let us know, and I'll be able to better answer your question that way, and then kind of draw some separation maybe between different levels and how we think about difficulty. C Drive, you say you take lessons at Sweetwater? Really cool. And Nancy, your keyboard's from Sweetwater? I order stuff from Sweetwater. Great. And Jess, thank you so much. Jess was actually at my concert on Friday night. Thanks for coming, Jess. It was really nice to get to meet you, actually. And Broadway guy, hello. And Isabel, great. About mental practicing, Isabel's question. When you do mental practice, should you do it by heart or while reading the score? Great question. Isabel, we're going to come back to that. And we're going to talk about Chopin's Heart first. Chopin's Heart's question we're going to talk about first. And good morning, Valerie. Let's see. Chopin's Heart, you say, no performing. Okay. Adult returner, enthusiastic. Great. You have a great teacher in Indiana. Wonderful. So it looks like The Mist. I'm not familiar with that piece. But some Brahms, Intermezzo 117, number 2. Great. So, cool. How much, Chopin's Heart specifically, how much faster repertoire have you played? So, that Brahms Intermezzo is by no means is not an easy piece. Let's see. I don't know if I have Opus 117 on here. If I do, I don't. I only have the Opus 118 Intermezzi handy. But very nice, really nice selection. So that's my first question, Chopin's Heart, is how much speedier repertoire have you played? Different composers and different styles are going to work things very differently for us. So if you're enjoying playing that Brahms and it feels comfortable for you, great. And you say your teacher says you're doing well with it. That's wonderful. If that's really happening and you feel comfortable with this more lyrical style of playing, and even despite the big stretches that we have in Brahms, if those are going well, that's great. And you'll be able to tackle more advanced lyric repertoire. So let's kind of divide repertoire into two basic categories for difficulty. Right? You say your speed is increasing rapidly. Wonderful. So we're going to say there's repertoire that is difficult. All repertoire is difficult to some degree. Okay? And some of it is more difficult because of interpretation. And usually that also goes along with voicing of chords. Voicing, do you want to bring out the top note, the middle note, the bottom note of a chord, etc. Or where in the phrase do you want to voice something? That's one category of difficulty. And the other category of difficulty is really how fast do things move? How much technical facility do we need? So most of my adult students, whether they have started from scratch or they've been returning to piano, most of them have a bigger challenges with the technical side of the repertoire, be them actual etudes, like the Bergmüller etudes, Opus 100 or Opus 109, or the Heller etudes, or I don't really mean, Chopin or anything that difficult, or anything that's in a similar vein where there are faster notes, there's more we need to play in every measure, more notes we need to play, the velocity is faster, Czerny. Or even just scales, if you're working on scales and increasing velocity with scales and arpeggios, right? That seems to be a theme with the adult students that I talk with often, that's the part of their development that kind of lags behind other things. So, Chopin's heart. Let's say if you'd like to play something lyrical and you're wondering if it's too difficult, how much time does it take you to read, let's say, the first 4 bars of the piece in question, of a piece you'd like to assess? And or how much time does it take you to read, if you would page through the piece, to the more difficult, maybe the most difficult measures, if you can find those ahead of time? How much time does it take you to read through those confidently? To read through them, I don't mean at tempo. I just mean, can we play them? Can we play all of the notes? And can we get them right? If that's happening very, very, very quickly, the piece is maybe too easy for you. If you can play and work on 4 bars in a lyric piece and have 4 bars feel like that you went from not knowing them at all to being able to play through them, maybe way under tempo, maybe not with dynamics or great articulation yet, but you can get through them after 1 day of practice. I think that's probably a really good indicator that the piece is the right level for you. Meaning, like, it's not going to take too long to learn everything, but it's also not going to be so short that it becomes like a sight reading exercise and there aren't bigger challenges for you. Hey, Rotzi. And if you find that the sheer number of notes and what you have to do is it's just very difficult, and you find like you cannot retain from one repetition to the next repetition to the next one. You can't retain what you learned from the previous repetition, where it feels like every time you go back, it's starting over again, and it's like you haven't seen the measure before. That's probably going to be too hard. We want to be able to show meaningful and I'm going to call 4 bars significant progress for 1 day of practice. Right? We need to be patient with ourselves. So 4 bars is a great amount of progress if we've really learned them, and we're going to be able to repeat them later today or tomorrow and have them be about where we left off today. Yeah. Chopin's heart, you say you've been evaluating difficulty based on, do I recall this from memory? Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And it can be difficult to assess that ahead of time without a teacher, because we're not always sure until we dive in and we start experimenting with something. How is it going to feel for us? So it's great that you do have a teacher and you're working with someone that can help guide you in those directions. It's also great if you take a look at, or even Google if it's not available, like what level or what grade level is Brahms Opus 117. I think you said number 1. Number 2. You could Google that and say, ask Google for some of the big exam boards and how they've leveled the piece. What level, RCM grade level is Opus 117 number 2? What ABRSM level is that? And then use that resource, and their syllabi for those organizations are all posted for free online. And then you can find other things that each of those organizations has deemed as the same level. Whole lists of pieces that are the same level, which is a great jumping off point for other and different challenges if you're not sure where to look. Now, let's flip, because I've been focused completely on lyric repertoire. If you haven't been playing a lot of etudes or a lot of faster repertoire, at the beginning, those are things like the first Clementi sonatina. And the other sonatinas in Opus 36 by Clementi, they get more and more difficult as you go through the opus. Or a Kuhlau sonatina, or getting into Mozart. How difficult is it for you to... All of those composers write very scalar lines, right? How difficult is it for you to achieve a linear execution of one scalar passage in one of those pieces? And how much do you find that you need to work on, is one finger not striking? So do we have little things where the fingers drop out, where we're not hearing the notes? Or do we have the opposite problem? So do we have accents happening, right? Those are really common problems to have in your practice, especially with that type of linear writing. So how much time do you need to practice those things out? And if you're finding that weeks go by and they're not really getting better, there are 2 questions we need to ask. And one is, how are you going about practicing the passage? Are you using tools to help balance out the problem spots and the non-problem spots? And does your teacher know about them, and have they worked with you in your lessons about them? And if you are using those tools and it's not getting better after a few weeks, it might just be a little too challenging. And I'm talking about, like, not the piece as a whole, but again, a short section, like a couple measures. If we're having trouble getting something that amounts to 5 seconds of music, and having trouble seeing the progress from day to day to day of how it's getting better, that might be too difficult. That type of stuff changes a little bit when you get into the really, really advanced repertoire. Like if you're practicing some of the really difficult etudes, Chopin Liszt, Rachmaninoff, etc. Days and weeks can go by that very little progress is made, and then we kind of cross a bridge and things begin to unlock. So there are cases where the perseverance in practice and knowing that you've been addressing it the right way, and it's just not time yet for it to come to you, that's different. And again, it's great that you have a teacher that can help you with that, because that's a really hard thing to self-assess. And then on the easy side of things, technically, can you sight read, or can you play Clementi Opus 36 number 1 at F sharp there? Can you play that? I mean, if you're playing Brahms 117 number 2, if you were my student, I'd expect you to be able to play that sonatina at a very high level and at a pretty quick clip, pretty quick tempo. So that could be another assessment. If you take the faster repertoire, that's typically considered lower grade levels. Can you far exceed how you'd normally hear those students that are playing at that grade level? Can you far exceed the tempo and the interpretation that's typically looked for? That's a great sonatina to try it out with. The first movement and the third movement. I can't offhand remember how the third movement goes. But those two movements, wonderful. And they were usually tackled very, very, very early for people. There's no problem with revisiting them and saying, hey, can I read this? If I'm really like a late intermediate, early advanced pianist, technically as well as interpretively and with my lyric playing, can I sit down and can I read that piece, that sonatina, can I make significant progress on the entire movement in one day? And in a week, can I have it like at a nice, really good performance tempo? And if you have that, then great. That's an easy piece for us. It's not a big enough challenge. And then we can go up in grade level from there and start to look at the other composers I mentioned. After Clementi, Kuhlau is great. I think that's Kuhlau. So Chopin's Heart, do you have any follow-up questions about that? I'll absolutely tackle, yeah. If you have any thoughts or other questions about this level of playing. Everybody is in a slightly different place. So, but the usual thing I find is that adult students are able to tackle much more advanced lyric repertoire than they are advanced technical repertoire. There's usually a lag between the two. Yeah. So let's see, you say you avoid scales because you thought it was impossible to gain expertise in that. Oh, do your scales every day. It doesn't have to be all of them, but do, a couple every day and have goals for them. It's not just about running through them, but have goals for your tempo, have goals for the articulation of your fingers, have goals for the dynamic you're able to play at each tempo. And can you maintain the dynamic? You can absolutely develop the dexterity you need to play the scales and arpeggios wonderfully and to play other etudes really well. C Drive says, eat your vegetables and do your scales. Yeah. Yeah. Scales are so important. And not just, they're wonderful finger exercises, yes. I personally would always use scales with students over doing anything from Hanon, just for the sake of, just because of what Hanon is by itself. It's just really boring, and it doesn't, at least the couple at the beginning of the Hanon book, they don't work on much other than finger articulation. We can truly work on finger articulation in literally every measure, every exercise that you play. You don't need a separate exercise to work on that. Good. I'm glad, Chopin's Heart. Wonderful. Let me know if you've got any follow-up questions about it, and if anything comes to mind, and I'll be happy to revisit. Lori had a follow-up question. You say, could you imagine a similar example of a lyrical piece as a benchmark? Similar to like how I used the Clementi as a benchmark for technique. Let's talk about a couple benchmark lyrical pieces. Sure. So right at the beginning of things, I'm saying right at the beginning, but I really mean, after you've gone through method books and you can read music and such. Schumann's Chorale from Album for the Young is great for lyric and homophonic playing. Almost everything's a half note. So it's the epitome of slow moving and really working on line and phrase. Fred, good. Yeah, To a Wild Rose by McDowell is another great one. It's a little bit more challenging than the Schumann I just played. And Fred, good to see you. Maybe after To a Wild Rose, you could come back to, if I can find it. I don't know. I can't remember what number it is in the album for the young. If any of you know, the chorale that begins, that's number 4, is revisited later in the set, and it's expanded upon. Maybe I haven't gone far enough yet. The figured chorale. There it is. It's number 42. And let's see. This is much more complicated, but we can take it nice and slow, and it's still lyric. So it's in a different key, but Schumann took the same theme and now added a really, really interesting moving line. That's a really neat thing. The Prophet. Chopin's Heart, which, is that from the album for the young? Do you happen to know if it is, what number it is? Or if it's from a different opus? There's also from Kinderszenen, of course, we'd start getting into Foreign Lands and People next. Some of these are pieces I think every student really needs to learn. What else? Some of the Bach little preludes are a nice balance between technical and lyrical. So those are really great for kind of mid-intermediate. Yeah. So Chopin's Heart, you say it's in the Schumann. It's in a piece you can't pronounce. Let me see if I can find it online. Schumann. Is it Opus 82? So I found The Bird as Prophet. This is very advanced. It's a combination, and it looks like a nice combination of technique and lyricism, but in order to play it lyrically, your technique is going to have to be very good. Because there's a lot of quick movement, just to show everybody a little bit of what I'm looking at. That's a little bit of the score. Not very quick, but... So... Things are nicely in one-hand position with some finger substitution there, but that's significantly more advanced than the other pieces I was just talking about. Let's see. I'm trying to think of other pieces that are in the lyric vein of things. that would continue to get more advanced? There could be a couple of the Burgmüller etudes that are more etudes in lyricism. Like number 1 from Opus 109 would be pretty good. A favorite of mine is William Gillick. And so now that we're kind of talking about mid-intermediate to early advanced repertoire, there's a lot of stuff by William Gillick that's really, really good for working on lyric playing. Before you get into Chopin, things like that. Oh yeah, Laura, you said you've enjoyed Tchaikovsky's album for the young. Yes, I agree. Thanks for bringing that up, Laurie. Morning Prayer, the very first one from the album, Tchaikovsky's album for the young, is really great. And a nice lyrical piece, mid-intermediate. Oh yeah, wonderful Chopin art. Some faster Kuhlau and Scarlatti. Great. Love it. Oh, good. I need to jump back to the beginning, to Isabel's question, and then I'm going to see what else came in the meantime. But Isabel had asked when we first started, when you do mental practice, should you do it by heart or while reading the score? And the answer to that is both. So when you're mentally practicing, they work on slightly different things. While your eyes are reading the score, you don't have to have something memorized, and you can use the score as a clue, right? Just to help remind you of what's been going on. The trouble is usually while you read the score, it can be difficult to envision what the hands are doing. So what I'd suggest is while you're doing mental practice with the score open, try to focus on the feeling of playing that passage. Not necessarily what it looks like to also play it, but what does it feel like if you were to play... let me pull something up. It was just the first thing here, so... Okay. The first WC arabesque. So if I were to mentally practice the first 2 bars, and I'm looking at the score, I'm going to be imagining what fingers my left and right hand are using, the gestures. Oh, am I going to lose my connection? I might. Sorry about that. We're going to come back. I would be imagining the gesture that the wrist is making up and down, and hearing in my inner ear, imagining the sound of each phrase. But I wouldn't be visualizing what it is that my hands are actually doing at the keyboard. So we're talking about these first 2 bars. I can play that better. Yeah. So mentally practicing that with the score open, I'm hearing the sound and thinking about the kind of wave that the hands are making and what fingers that I'm going to play each of those notes with, and then the shape I'm going to make across the phrase. But if I'm mentally practicing without the score open, I'm going to have place a bigger emphasis on closing my eyes and seeing the keyboard in front of me and seeing the notes, same as we were looking at the score. They're the same pitches, yeah? But seeing those notes down here instead. So seeing the shape of this A major in first inversion, and then how it morphs into G sharp minor, etc. So I'd be, in a sense, mentally watching my hands play and feeling the gesture and hearing the sound in my inner ear. So doing the practice, looking at the score, I think it's a little bit easier, and that's okay. Sometimes we want that. And especially if we don't have it memorized yet, we can't even look away. We don't know well enough what the notes are. And you can use that as a bridge. So if you start doing mental practice with score open and you're watching that, you're still getting a lot of great work, imagining the sound and imagining the gesture. And then when you're ready, you can add visualizing the movement as well. Hey, Brent. Thanks so much, Brent. Isabel, if you have any follow-ups, let me know. I know you asked that right at the beginning of the stream, so I hope you're still here. Let's see. Ryan, are you still here? You asked for pre-practice stretching tips and techniques. Let's see if I've missed anybody. Please just ask your question again. Hey, Ryan, I see you're still here. Great. Okay, pre-practice stretching and technique. I think I've got, well, we'll see how many we get through. The first one I'll bring up, I think, is something, it's not really a stretching exercise, but it's great for coordinating. I'm not using the word strength on purpose. It's great for coordinating the lack of buckling of the, let me see if I can zoom in on this. Here we go. I'll show you like this. So I'm going to do it upside down so you can really see what's happening. I'm pressing thumb and second finger, together. And what we want to do is make sure that none of the joints buckle as we put pressure through the fingertips. And you can see me kind of pulsing, thumb and second finger. Okay, that's less of a stretch, but it's great technique work because we're practicing using the thumb like the key surface, and we'd actually do it like this normally, right? Using the thumb as the key surface, and the second finger is pushing on the thumb. In the same way, it's going to be striking a note here. If I use left hand so you can see better. And we don't want buckling to happen like that, or in the bridge, or further up the finger in any way, right? So doing this exercise, left hand's even better. Doing that exercise is really great. You can go through all fingers. Yes? I believe this is one of List's warm-ups, if you can call it a warm-up. But it's great to make sure that we're practicing not letting any of that buckle so that we get a really efficient transfer of energy from the playing mechanism up on the whole rest of the arm too, through the wrist, through the bridge, through the finger, and down and into the key so that we know exactly how much force is going into each note. So I always recommend, if you have any trouble with parts of the playing mechanism buckling or giving out or not being able to withstand the force of playing through them, that's a great thing to do. Secondly, I don't do this. I don't really do warm-ups away from the keyboard all that often, unless I'm like really physically really cold. If there's really a little blood moving and I have to do something, especially if I have to play and I haven't been able to warm up and, I was just out in the freezing weather or something like that, I'll do a couple of things. But one of those things would be a simple stretching of the hand out to its maximum and releasing. But notice how quick it is. I'm not staying stretched and we're not holding the hand open, but just a quick stretch of all 5 fingers completely and release and release. And that's actually really, I think it's really nice. It feels really good. It works a little bit on extension being easy. And it also gets the blood flowing really nicely into the fingertips, which feels good. It's great. Another thing that Liszt actually recommended doing was something that I used to do when I played baseball, of all things. And that's just taking palm up and pulling the fingers back. So it's a stretch, right? And maybe you could, I'll say pulse this or do a few repetitions. I'm in a really bad place to show you because the piano's kind of in the way. But we'd want the arm very relaxed here and not elevated. Yeah. Same thing in the other hand. That's really good. And you can also do the other side and gently pull down. So I'm using my opposite hand to pull. I'm not actively trying to move in one direction or the other. The hand I'm trying to stretch and warm up is staying relaxed. The other hand is the one that's engaged with doing something. So this is great because it's helping to warm up the forearm everything that's happening. Same thing back here. Between really doing this, and this kind of exercise, that's all I would ever need to do. You could go backwards as well from that way and pull this way. Then just start playing. Because there really isn't anything better than going slowly when you start and getting into some technical thing. It doesn't have to be a crazy challenge. I just mean, gosh, after you do some of those things, dive into a scale. Slowly feel the connection to the bottom of the key on every pitch. And after you do that, if you're feeling good, maybe try playing, if you really want to warm up quickly, try playing fortissimo detached. And then we can start to get into other warm-ups that are going to work specific areas of the playing mechanism. That'll be great. I'm a big fan, Ryan, of not spending too much time working on warming up unless there's like a blood flow issue. So I would even tell students usually, so let's picture this. I have a student that come over for a lesson and they've been at work all day and they haven't been able to touch the piano at all. Okay, in that instance, I usually say before we start our lesson and before I tell you anything to do or to change, play a couple scales. Like, I'll go make myself another cup of coffee. I'm not here to judge your warm-up. Just play a little bit and get the blood flowing. Great. And then we can dive into other things. But usually I'll tell students, when you're practicing at home, your warm-up can be right in the stuff that you need to work on. It's not like you have to warm up before you can practice. For most people, unless your house or your apartment is really, really cold, or unless you just came in from being in the snow outside, or there's a circulation issue, I don't really think you need to warm up. What we need to do is be mindful of what we choose to practice first and how we do it for the sake of, one, making progress in our practice, and two, doing it in a way that is healthy, that's not going to hurt us. So we're not going to, first thing when we sit down, there is one circumstance that I'll disagree with myself, but most of the time, 99.9% of the time, you're not going to launch into the hardest thing you have to play at full dynamic and full tempo, being cold. That's not a good idea. But there isn't a problem with launching into your practice session with that hardest phrase at less of a dynamic, or just at a very comfortable dynamic and a very comfortable tempo. That will get you warmed up as you start working on it. And it's probably also a good thing to put a few more reps in playing it more slowly anyway. Those are always going to be worthwhile. So then we can do two things simultaneously. We're getting the blood flowing a little bit more after we haven't played at all. And we're getting to practice something right away that needs the practice, that really, really needs it. Now, the one time I will contradict myself is if you're practicing for a performance, whether it's one piece or like a full program of something, it can be great to not have played at all on a practice day, not performance day. So this is like the week before a performance. The day you've gotten up, you haven't had a chance to play at all. Don't warm up. Jump into something that's really hard, whether it's in the middle of your piece or whether that's just if you have one piece you're playing on a program, just perform it. This is the week before. We need to practice performing it. And we need to practice feeling what it's like to perform it cold. Because when anxiety and nerves get involved and stage fright and all of that, we tend to, a lot of people get like cold, clammy hands, and there's nothing we can do about it. And if we have the knowledge and the, if we know what to expect before we get up there and we play something we've practiced a lot, but it all of a sudden feels different, we can recreate a lot of that feeling different by playing it cold. So that's a really great thing. And you can't do everything like that. If you've got a big program of an hour plus of music, you can't replicate playing cold every day. So this is something that you could start to build in way earlier, way before the performance. Take the things that are big struggles, sit down and just launch into them. As long as we don't have a physical coldness, right, that we need to overcome. Launch into them and see what it's like, and then learn from that experience, because it's going to be different. And you might be tempted to use the body, the playing mechanism, in a different way than when you feel warmed up and when you feel good. And what we want to do is program ourselves to say, no, I need to play it the same way that I practiced it. It should not be different because it feels a little different in this moment, just like it shouldn't be different when it feels different when we're in front of people. So that's the one time I'll contradict that and say, yeah, if you do have Chopin etudes to play, yeah, sure, get up one morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, and just play one, full tempo, full speed, and learn from what happens. It'll be really eye-opening. Yeah. Hey, backwards fellow, good to see you. Yes. Thanks for agreeing. And yeah, awesome. Let's see. E to the ERP. Hey. By the way, please, if I did miss any questions, I'm going to answer E to the ERP's question next. But if I did miss something from earlier in the chat, please post it again. Yeah. There's a lot that was posted. So if I missed it, please post it again. Unintentional. Let's see. No, where's the question? E to the ERP. Okay. What should you do if you're in the middle of a performance and you have a brain lapse and you can't remember what's next? Great question. Okay. So my first question back is, have you done interleaved practice? And whether your answer is yes or no, the follow-up question would be, what is interleaved practice? Sum it up in a nutshell. I'm going to give all of you an opportunity to type that in, because I know what it is and I can tell all of you very easily. But you know, one of the best things, and this actually relates to playing in performance, one of the best things to do to learn something even better is tell it to someone else. Yeah, Brent. So, okay. Molly Gabrian talks about it. That's for sure. I have a video about it on the channel here. It's a part of my practicing course as well. I've been doing interleave practice for 20, maybe more than 20 years. So what is it? What is the crux of it? What are we doing? What is the challenge for the brain? Backwards fellow. After you've raked up a pile of leaves in the yard and then you come into practice. That's good. Love it. Yeah. Okay, E to the ERP. You jump around during practice a lot, but you don't know if that's interleaved. That's not interleaved practice. Brent, you say it's avoiding mindless repetition. Yes, that's part of it. You say the brain doesn't change by doing too much of the same thing. Absolutely true. Yeah, backwards fellow, I agree with you. Yard work is the bane of your technique. I would say the same thing. Yeah, it's winter time, so shoveling snow. I don't love the way it makes my hands and arms feel, especially if I have to play. Absolutely, Isabel. Good to see you. All right, if you've got other ideas, there are many more of you here. If you have other ideas about what interleaved practice is, drop them in. I'll give us 10 more seconds. One more sip of coffee, and then we'll get started. Okay. Okay, interleaved practice is about, truly it's about challenging your brain to do something once in the middle of something unrelated. Chopin's heart, you say, is it different from not having a plan, jumping around with measures? It's we want to have a plan when we intentionally interleave, so it's not completely random. But you could say, part of it is, can we recall at random anything? And can it be, let's say, as close to perfect, knowing that perfect is always something that we are chasing. Perfection is never attainable. But is it as close as we would like perfect to be today when we give our one repetition? Yeah, Brent, you say practicing recall. If you do too much repetition, you're not practicing recall. Absolutely. There are ways around that. There are ways because, playing the piano is a motor exercise. We have to have motor pathways built in order to play. You can't just not do it. You can't skip that part of the process. But there's a lot of focus lately in various places online and with really good teachers on getting out of the idea that you need to sit and repeat and repeat and repeat, because it's very unfruitful most of the time. So interleave practice is challenging yourself that completely out of context, you can jump to a predefined section or phrase and you can play it. And you know exactly where it is. You know exactly how to start. You know how to make your phrase. You can be in the moment, both technically and musically, in an instant. That requires practicing, starting in a variety of pre-planned places. So, since this is just still open, okay, I usually choose to number my scores backwards, which is it's not necessary to do interleave practice. But we're not going to do that today. It's a different form of memorization. But let's just say, okay, bar 1 is number 1. Where the phrase changes is number 2. And then here, where our main theme begins, is number 3. If I were to work on that, let's say I've practiced it well, and I were to work on it in an interleaved manner, I would come from something else I'm working on. Let's see. Sure. Chopin, something totally different. And I'd finish whatever I was planning to work on with that, and I'd say, I'm going to play number 2 into number 3 from this Debussy now. And I don't get a chance to play it ahead of time. I just have to do it. And then we'd stop. And we would not repeat it again. You would go back to either what you were practicing before, or you would pick another section to interleave. So, interleave practice could be coming from different repertoire and testing spots in a separate piece. Or you can do it with one piece of music and you can just mix everything up. So we have a bunch of numbered sections, and then you could write them down on a piece of paper. You could use a computer to say, hey, I've got, in this particular piece, I've got 20 sections that I've numbered out. I know where those 20 begin. I can either find them in the score if I page to it, or they're memorized. We want to get to the memorized part. And then the computer is going to spit out a random map and it's going to say, play these selections from 1 to 20, but in this totally jumbled up order. That's another way to do interleave practice, because we're not playing the piece straight through from the top down and connecting all of them. Okay, I bring all that up because this initial question was from E to the ERP, right? Okay. So you have you get to a spot and you're in the middle of a performance and it's memorized, and then you have you get brain freeze, or your mind goes blank seemingly, and you do not know how to get through the current phrase. We really want to have a spot that we've practiced beginning over and over and over and over again, but on separate days. We want to have a spot we can jump to that's as close as possible to where we just had our issue. So let's take this Debussy and go forward. Let's say let's say, okay, I'm in measure 26 through 29 right now. And let's say we are playing this from memory, and I get to measure 26 in a performance, and I say, I don't remember if I didn't remember there was a G natural. Maybe I forgot to play that note, and it throws off the rest of the passage. Maybe it's going to feel like we freeze and say, I don't know where to go next. But what we want our brain to do is say, I know this spot that's coming up, probably here, measure 28. And if it's not there, it's definitely in 29. So that if we get to measure 26, we say, I don't remember, I'm going to jump. And I'm going to jump to the spot that I've practiced interleaved a lot in the past. That's one of the great things interleave practice is for getting over those memory slips. The more detailed you dive into it, you could, and I used to have teachers that would tell me, you should be able to start in every bar of every piece that you play, whether it's in the middle of a phrase or not. So the easiest way to start interleaving is to take your big chunks and understand where they are, understand the form of the piece. And you can use, if you have an A, B, C, A form, that begins to be your chunks that you start from. You can start from each of the big checkpoints, to use that word that Brent just said. And then within those, we create more and more spots that we can begin and that we understand so deeply. And if you really take it all the way to really the highest level that you possibly can, you could jump to any bar. You could probably even jump to the middle of a bar and begin and just be able to play and continue on. That's probably that last part isn't easy, but this idea of how to practice is probably the easiest way to get through those memory slips, because you can absolutely have a practice plan and you can work on how to get from point A to point B and know that no matter what happens on stage, you have a lot of places that are really comfortable. And all you have to say is, okay, there was a little problem. I'm going to jump to my next point. There is another thing you can do, but it requires a lot more theory knowledge. And that would be, if you really know what you're playing really well, and you know the harmony, and you know the language that you're speaking, and you can say, to use the example from this Debussy again, the bar that we got to, that let's say was measure 26, and we had our memory slip there. And all we got to were the first three notes. If you would remember that measure 26 is an A dominant 7, and you know how to build a dominant 7 on A, you could take a guess and what's the word I'm looking for? Improvise. There we go. You could improvise your way through an A dominant 7 chord. Whether you'll play the exact notes Debussy wrote or not, well, that may or may not happen. If you have really good ears, you'll be able to follow. Bum, 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 ba, da, 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 dum. And you'll be able to recreate it even through a memory slip where our brain goes blank, if we really know the harmonic structure. Even if it would turn into, it's not what Debussy wrote, but it's close enough, it would fool everybody, and it would help bridge you again to the next point, where then you wouldn't even have to make a jump mid-phrase, but you could try to finish the phrase, knowing what harmony you're in the middle of, and your ear leading you and saying, I know that this is all stepwise, and I know kind of how it's supposed to turn around, and I'm going to take a guess how to play that on the spot using an A dominant 7 chord. That's another way to add another layer of depth to this. But your understanding of theory has to be really advanced and really, really fast. Your recall of those concepts has to be really, really fast, because when we are in the middle of performing, we probably aren't thinking about what harmony we're playing. We shouldn't be. We should be focused on the beauty that we're creating and listening to the line. So our brain has to be able to jump and say, I remember where I was. I'm supposed to be this chord. Here's how I build that chord. I'm going to play something and try it out. And then can I have that link to my next checkpoint? And if the answer is yes, then there's a good chance, if we've done it all in a fraction of a second, if we've gone through all of those steps in a fraction of a second, you will be able to recreate the bars exactly that Debussy wrote. And you might feel shook up about it on stage because you know that you just had this moment for yourself, but everybody else won't have even perceived a problem. So, E to the ERP, sorry. I see you're just coming back. We just talked a little bit about how you can also use harmony to get through memory slips as well. So interleaved practice is the most straightforward to making that happen. Interleaved practice is also, it's just great. It's great stuff because it really tests. You don't have to wait till you're getting ready for performance to do it. In fact, you shouldn't. You could use it to test how well you learned something earlier in your practice day. Here's a way that I use quasi-interleaved practice just about every day that I practice. Let's say I start a practice session and I'm working on one page. I actually did this yesterday. I was working on a single page of music by Debussy, and it was, I don't know, maybe 12 measures at most. And I spent 10 minutes, 20 minutes on it, and there was a lot of progress made. I felt good about it, put it away, moved on to something else. Well, before I got up from the piano to end my practice session and to take a break, do something else, and say, I don't know when I might not get to practice again today. I might have to wait till tomorrow. And instead of leaving that stuff I just learned until tomorrow, I came back and I revisited it once. And it wasn't memorized. It was my first day learning the notes. So I pulled the score back out. I said, great, I'm just going to play through this once. That's also interleaved practice because I had gone on in my practice session to do lots of other things, but I came back to revisit one item that I didn't want to leave and let go until tomorrow to see if it was going to stick. The brain, here, somebody fill in the blank. And Brent, you might know the answer to this. The brain learns best when, hopefully that's not too open-ended. Oh, Brent, well, that's a really good answer, when you've had enough sleep. That's really true. Let's change the phrase a little bit. The brain reinforces best when backwards fellow, maybe. There's a deeper answer than that. IB, you're the closest so far. And exith, when focused. Focus is of course important. Yes, absolutely. We don't want to be distracted in practice. Backwards fellow, gaps between the intervals. Yeah, all those are important. Chopin's heart, when there's a goal, these are all really good things. The brain learns best, or the brain reinforces best, when it's almost forgotten what you've put in. when you're at the cusp, and it's a really hard thing to feel, when you're at the cusp of forgetting what you just practiced and you come back to reinforce it, that one repetition after a break, right before you have forgotten how to play it, is the most powerful repetition. And if you can learn in your own process, because all of us work differently. I've worked with private students on this, and sometimes students need, like, if there's 2 minutes between what they've just worked on and that repetition, only 2 minutes can go by. Some other people, so this would be more like me, I need an hour or maybe more before I get to the point where the brain starts to forget what I've just put in earlier. And then, as we get better and better and better at this, and as we're preparing for a performance, that space gets longer and longer and longer. That's how, we can work on and learn a 2-hour program. You can do that without 2 hours a day, because it's not about repeating everything every day. You get to a certain point and you just need that one really important repetition, and you have to know how far away that is. So when the brain is almost forgotten, you are going to solidify all of the neural connections you built, the best by far of your entire day. And it's going to take one repetition. So, yes, Bachward's Fellow. I hope that's a quote of what I just said. So that's why it's really, really important when we practice that, especially the things that you've just put in today, the changes you've made, the new notes or measures that you've learned, don't get to tomorrow before you revisit them. It's going to be, for everyone, it's going to be much harder to recall after 24 hours. No matter how good your sleep is, no matter if you've taken a nap, no matter how many repetitions you've done, no matter if you interleaved earlier in the day, it's going to be much, much harder to repeat that 24 hours later unless we find where the one repetition needs to be that makes it really stick. Hey, Kale. Yeah. So the goal for all of you is to find how long does that take? And as you've learned something more and more in depth, how does that length of time change? That's something a great teacher can help you with. So, sometimes I'll say it. Sometimes in private lessons I teach, I kind of trick my students into forgetting, or I speed up the process. So we might be working on playing some new notes, or we might be going through and I'll be showing them how to practice a passage. And so instead of actually showing them, I'm just telling them, hey, try this articulation and try this rhythm, and let's do this, and we're doing this repetition and this repetition. And we get to a point, and I just start to have a conversation with them. And it might be like somewhat on topic. It might be totally off topic. I'll say, hey, I just remembered, like, you and your family, you were off visiting someone, or you were traveling last week. How did that go? And, we'll have 2 minutes. It's not a waste of time in the lesson, because in those 2 minutes, I am pulling them completely out of what we just did on purpose. And then I've got like a mental timer on, and I know, okay, conversation is going to stop at a certain point quite soon. And then I say, hey, okay, go back and play the phrase we just worked on. And a lot of times when that happens in lessons, because I know the student really well, I can time that conversation to be the length of time that they need to almost forget. And then we reinforce it. And then it's like when they go home and they practice later that night or the next day, that spot that we were working on is super solid. And it has, I would say, equal to do with the break and the distraction as it had to do with the type of focused repetition that we did. So, great questions. Love it. Hey, Miguel. Oh, and Nancy, you say this is assuming you're not repeating mistakes. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, we want to nip those as soon as possible, even when we can't. Even if we do miss things, we all miss things once in a while. Even if we do miss things, there are ways of reinforcing a change faster. Nancy, I know you have my course. I talk about it in the course. Old way, new way. We'll just call it that. Old way, new way. Repetition. Yeah, backwards fellow. Yeah, the brain perfectly learns mistakes. The brain doesn't know what a mistake is and what it isn't. It just says, this is what you've given me. I'm going to repeat what you've given me. Yeah. Thanks, Bedlington Groomer. Okay. Let's see. Phase. You were talking about a prelude, a Chopin prelude. Again, if I missed a question, please type it in again. Cynthia. I see, Cynthia, you had a question. Cynthia, yours came in first. I'm going to answer your question first, and then we're going to jump to the Chopin question. So, Cynthia, you say, is there a benefit to practicing movement, choreographic hand and body motion when learning a new piece? Or is that too minute or forced to focus on? That's great. Great question. Personally, so teachers differ on this topic into two camps. I am personally of the camp that the gesture should be after or in service of the music, and not that the gesture is created to create the music. So there are some very fine teachers that teach, if you want to play a certain legato line, you do this with your hand and with your arm. I don't really like that, personally. It might work well for some people and you can experiment with it, but that's not how I teach. I teach that it should be our ear that leads the line, and then how we physically express that can take a whole lot of different avenues. And it's up to us individually. We all have different bodies, and we're all going to express things slightly differently. So I don't want to force a student into a specific expression because that's how we play that line, or that's how we show that expression. Anyway, so when in the process does the choreography happen? Because of the direction I take, I would say there is no pressure on it happening. And in fact, your ear should get to know the music first, and your ear should be guiding you in the line you want to play first, before you can decide, how is my elbow leading, or how is my wrist leading, and how is the arm moving, and is my wrist up or down, and how am I playing through this particular passage? I think that's secondary to our ear leading the tone and leading the phrase. And if we keep it that way, then okay, there's not pressure to execute a certain movement first. We can start by just learning it, focus on learning the notes, and then we can start incorporating other things. So I guess that does kind of answer your question. I don't think gesture needs to be learned on day one of learning notes. There's a lot of other things to think about. If there is a particular gesture that is going to aid in the notes we're playing, that might be really important to learn quickly. Fred, that's an interesting comment. I'm not super familiar. I don't know if I've seen any of his master classes. So you're saying Boris's way that he explains his sound through body movements. We can find success in both ways. Yes. Yeah, okay, Fred, that's a great example, what you just wrote. He'll say something like, for this chord, you need to feel it from your back and you want your arms to go out to the side. Okay, that's, I think, kind of a trick in a masterclass setting to get a quick result from a student. Because, yeah, it is changing our physical approach to playing something. The problem is it's not changing how our ear predicted the sound. And maybe sometimes it is really important to have the ear hear something first before it can predict. Maybe that's great. If I were to do that, I would rather play it at the piano for the student to say, here, this is, try to go for this kind of sound. If they're struggling to find something, only if they're struggling. And then, how are you going to do that? How are you going to express what you just heard? Because now the sound is leading the way, not the body. I did want to talk about one. It was just something I was teaching the other week that I'll be probably working on again tomorrow with my student. Sometimes there are gestures that are really important to understand at the beginning. And, okay. Frederick probably knows this. Anybody else? Do you know what piece this is that we're looking at the middle of? Hey, Trance. Thanks for those comments, by the way. Yes, Fred. Diminished Sevenths, the movie. Love it. Okay, so yeah, Fred and Brent. Great. So this measure 46 and beyond, I think by far, as we continue on, down to measure 54, this is, I think, by far the most technically challenging part of the etude. But Chopin actually tells you exactly how to play it the most successfully because of all of the slurs. These slurs not only show a musical a sonic byproduct of the, they not only show the sound we want to create, but they also show the gesture that's going to be most efficient in playing the page. Yeah, Brent, perfect. And when we play all those slurs, if we feel each one, all right, don't make fun of my sight reading. Okay, if we feel each slur is down, up, down, up, down, up. And if I zoom in on that, without the score present, so, there it is. Okay. So down, up, release, down, release, down, release, down, release. So, oh, sorry. C natural. So all of these, instead of trying to play and stretch and stretch and stretch, if you practice this way, it'll never speed up. Thanks, Fred. So, yeah, if we practice with the stretch and trying to maybe make the most linear connection possible, which you might think is the most efficient connection possible, we're not only going to miss the articulation that we're supposed to play this with, but it's also going to be harder because the stretching is prohibiting fast movement because it places the hand under tension. So every two-note group is a gesture. Right? So that's an example where the composer, being the genius he was, gave you the physical movement, really probably the only physical movement to make to play the passage successfully at tempo. Um, so there are some cases where that gesture has to come first or has to come very early. But a lot of the time, my focus is on let the ear lead and then discover, hopefully for yourself and with the help, the aid of a teacher in small bits, discover how you're going to show that sound. Yeah, Brent. That would be interesting. So that was a great question. I cannot remember who asked that question, and I hope I was of some help. um, okay, I see. IB, you had a question, and there was also a phase. You had a question about a Chopin prelude. Let's see, Miguel, you said. Oh, well, okay, Miguel, let's talk about this first because it's still about movement, body movement. So I'm thinking about the question. So Miguel said, you've heard other pianists advise to open your elbow, which I assume means like that a little bit, to relax the arm while playing. But your professor says the opposite. I don't think I can say one or the other is correct because I think they're both needed depending on the passage. You know, the most relaxed position the arm can be in is just hanging from the shoulder. And so if the elbow's hanging from the shoulder, it's very close to the torso. It's not extended out. And that's an important baseline. And we can play a lot from that position. If we play with the elbows open a little bit, that might add some power, and it might there might be a psychological feeling of additional control over the instrument. But I think we need to know that it places the upper arm under tension just because it's been moved. So where we use that, I think we should be particular. We shouldn't play everything from that position. Nor should we play everything with the arms hanging off the shoulder and at the side, because if we do that, then we're going to be out of alignment when we try to reach for the upper octaves or the lower octaves or cross in between us, etc. That's going to cause a problem too. So we need to find a balance between them. So, Miguel, I don't have a better answer than that. Because it depends on the passage in particular. Okay. Chopin's Heart, I've got to come back to... no, great question. I'll have to come back to that because I really want to answer these other couple that came in. Faze, you asked about the E-flat 7 voicing in a Chopin prelude. So let me pull up the preludes. So let's see. You say second measure causes a lot of tension. Maybe more is added since it's F. Tension chord causing tension. Okay. Is there one particular Can you narrow down, Phase, which chord causes the most? Third beat. Oh, thanks. I just saw that. Oh, okay, the big one. Prelude 20, by the way. So what's causing the tension? Phase, is your tension in the hand, the arm, the upper arm, the shoulder, the neck? Where do you feel the tension happening the most? Because of the stretch that we have, it's a ninth. We're going to feel some of that in the hand, for sure. Okay, you say it stretches. As long as we aren't feeling something further up the body, we might have a different need to address something else if there is like a shoulder issue or if our neck is tight while we're playing the chords. But if that's not the issue, when we get to especially to that bar, but across this whole prelude, really, make sure you're sitting far enough to the left. Let's see here. I've moved myself over quite a lot so that now my body is mostly it's centered about on the G below middle C. And I can still play the higher stuff later on in the prelude fine. But what's really important is when we get to the second bar here, and you can kind of see, look at where my head is as I lean in. I'm very far left. And I not only have shifted myself left on the bench, but then when I'm playing those chords, I'm also leaning further left. That's totally fine. And if you're only playing this prelude, gosh, even if you're playing other things on the program, you have a break. Yeah, you say it's a cheat code. It's not really a cheat code. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, you should be to the left because the more we stretch and the more we position a hand in front of the body, either hand, the more that stretch becomes limited. And not just limited, but really tight. All you have to do is, try to play that if you take your normal position at the keyboard, say about centered on middle C or a little to the left. And play the same chord, the ninth, but play it up 2 octaves. When you play it here, it should feel relatively easy. It's still a stretch, yes. There's nothing we can do about the stretch. We have to get used to the feeling of a ninth, unless your hands are... If the ninth is really difficult to reach, maybe we need to alter the notes. If it's at the maximum, right? But just try playing it there and then don't move your torso and play it here. That's very uncomfortable. This is very comfortable. This is very uncomfortable. And how do we make these two feel the same? We have to orient our torso in the same position. So here, the arm is off the side, the elbow is a little to the right, the hand has plenty of freedom. Here, it does not, it's stuck. And in making that stretch, look at how greatly in alignment everything is. You put it here, everything's crooked. We want to maintain that alignment. So, what do we need to do? I have to lean away from the microphone quite a lot. My head is now here, not here. So, Phase, that's the biggest suggestion. As long as the tension is only in the hand, we can eliminate a lot of the tension from being out of alignment just by leaning and shifting ourselves where we need to be. The other thing is, all of these chords that lead up to this, have you practiced letting go? At least for now. We can always add in, if we want to play this stuck in the keys for an effect. But right now, let go. And let go. And feel how the hand relaxes immediately after playing the chords. And keep doing that. And so now the stretch is only for an instant. Yeah. Faze, you say you're going to practice this in other keys. You might find, Faze, that it's... there'll be some keys that it's possible in, but yeah. Yeah, just be aware that the when we have ninths and we have or tenths and we change the key that we're in, not all of the notes on the keyboard are spaced equally. And the ninth there is probably going to feel easier than some other ones that you have to play as you change the key. So just know ahead of time, they're not all going to feel the same, and the amount of stretch you feel is going to be different from key to key. Okay. By the way, I have to run in about 15 or so minutes. So we have to wrap up a little bit earlier than usual. But I'm going to try to answer everything that I can here. Okay. Hey, thanks, Bedlington Groomer, for... hey, and hello, Bob. Thanks, Bedlington Groomer, for filling Bob in on that. I missed that comment, but welcome, Bob. Let's see. Did I miss anything? We had IB's question, I think was the next one. How much time should you spend learning pieces at your level, and how much time sight reading if you want to improve the most? Great question. Sight reading, try to sight read something every day. I think if you do that and you really make it sight reading, where it's just one time through, take 5 or 10 minutes and sight read every day. I am a fan of Bach Scholar's Bach sight reading book. It's really wonderful, and there's over 100 examples, and he took them and broke them into, he rearranged them himself to be a variety of grade levels, and they're usually, I think, like 4 to 8 bar excerpts from Bach chorales. They're really wonderful. It's a great resource to have. I fully support that book for students. So that would be a great place to look, or you could pick anything else, anything that's at least 2 to 3 grade levels below your current repertoire. So yeah, 5 to 10 minutes, but make sure you do it every day. Make it an enjoyable part of things that you look forward to. Like, I get to play something new and totally different that I haven't experienced before. And in order to keep doing it, if you need to incorporate it as a habit, pair it with something else. It doesn't need to be at the beginning of your practice. Do you need to do it right after you've worked on some scales and arpeggios? Fine. Or is it something you want to do at the end of practice after you've worked on a lot of other stuff? Fine. But you might find it easiest to remember if you pick the same point in practice to always do that. And I'm not sure if you actually asked this, IB. You asked about amount of time. So IB, you say, is 10 minutes a day enough? For sight reading, I'd say yeah. Yeah. And then for the rest of your repertoire, I really believe that if you use your practice time correctly, you really don't need more than 1 to 2 hours a day to play pretty much anything. I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I had a concert program to play last Friday. And, the week of the program and the week leading up to it, maybe 4 of the days of the 7, I got to practice 2 hours. And my program was about 2 hours long. The rest of the days was 1 hour. One of the days I taught, I didn't get to practice at all because I taught for almost 12 hours. And everything went really well. So if we know how to tackle things the right way in our practice time, I think we can make a tremendous amount of progress. You don't need hours upon hours upon hours. In fact, if you're really pushing your brain hard enough and you're making practice hard enough for yourself, meaning you're not just doing a lot of mindless repetition that occupies a lot of time, you're not going to be able to focus for more than a couple hours a day anyway. So, when you hear stories about the greats who played and they practiced all day long, I wonder how much of it was truly really good practice and how much of it was just a lot of repetition. So, it's a little different if you're talking about, like if you have to present multiple programs of music or you're in one of the big competitions and you've got to present 6 hours of repertoire or something. Okay, you're going to need more than a couple hours practice for sure. But if you think about the amount of repertoire those pianists are presenting and the amount of practice they do in a day, and then you extrapolate out, if you're working on 15 minutes of music, okay, it brings us back down to, if you're working on 15 minutes of music for 4 hours, it does not line up with the efficiency of practice use if someone else, a Clyburn competitor, for example, is practicing 6 hours but learning 6 hours of repertoire. So keep that in perspective. So IB, you say if your sight reading is about 4 levels below, should you put more focus on it to make it to 2? No, not right now. Let it simmer and let it slowly come up. The more you do it, the better it's going to get. But also use your sight reading time to learn to better analyze what's actually happening in the score that you're sight reading. When I teach sight reading, a lot of it is about pre-analysis of what we're about to play. And so at earlier levels, we look for patterns and we have time. We give ourselves time to look for the patterns and then say, I recognize some of those. And then as we get better and better and better, we need to learn how to take those patterns and see them as we read something without any time to prepare. But the process of this is the same. It's just the amount of time we gets condensed from, usually if I'm working on sight reading with an intermediate student, we will analyze an excerpt for 5 minutes. And we'll talk about it. We'll talk about harmony. We'll talk about voice leading. We'll talk about seeing interval relationships. And then we'll talk about mentally playing it before we actually play it. And we'll take a lot of time for what amounts to be maybe a 20-second excerpt. And then at the end of those 5 minutes, we play the excerpt. And then we talk about how it went. And if it went well, great. And if it didn't, then what were the steps that we didn't do as well that, or what are the components, what are the patterns that we don't recognize as well yet that we need to work on a little bit more? But if you use the time well, I don't think you need to spend more than 5 minutes, for sure. Calais, taught for 12 hours. I do that twice a week. Experience. My maximum reach is a 10th. I can kind of hold an 11th if I break it, but I cannot simultaneously strike an 11th. I would never do that in a performance. It's way too big. But I do have a 10th, and I have a 10th with notes in between. At least the normal ones, where there isn't too much weird stuff going on. One of my favorite stretches that people that play any of my arrangements hate is this one. It's only an octave, but it has that minor second at the bottom, and no matter how you play it, it's a really big stretch. It feels a lot bigger than an octave, and I put that voicing in lots of things that I write. Okay. Holly Mars, you say how to play a note sounding softly. We want to be sure that we're not losing energy through the playing mechanism, through the wrist, through the bridge, and through the finger. And if we're not, right, if everything stays relatively curved and none of the joints are collapsing, we can try to play, let's say, one soft note with the third finger. I'll use an E, for example. And we play that by trying to let the finger be pulled into the key by the forearm and by the elbow. From the elbow, you could think about it. So there's not a lot of, the finger isn't playing like that, but we can learn how to do that with a drop. Some teachers might call it arm weight. It's always a tricky thing to put words to, because when we think about weight and dropping, a drop becomes kind of a passive activity. And if we really do drop without any engagement, we just go splat. So I know that's a quick answer, Holly, but I'm trying to wrap up the last few questions here. So I would try that, and try it with the third finger first. The third finger is the finger that we have the most control over. And can we play ultra softly with great support? Backwards fellow, the speed of the key press is critical. That's true. Yeah. Has to be slow. And I guess also, Holly. Okay, backwards fellow. Yeah, I guess I could get behind that. Depress the key so slowly that it doesn't sound like this. So the key is down, and then gradually play it faster. Yeah, that can be a nice... There can be some other technical things that could get in the way of that, where by the time we play it, we're making too big of a sound. But we have to assess that as we go. But thanks for those tips, backwards fellow. Oh, Frederick, you asked for favorite non-piano piece or composer. I don't know. I'm going to say today, I'm going to say Morton Lordson. So I'm especially thinking of his Lux Aeterna for choir and orchestra. It's really lovely. I've always had a soft spot for choral music. I really love choral music. And I really love the way he writes. Yeah. So. Let me see. I think I'm sure I missed some questions. Oh, Miguel, you gave an example for the opening of the Czech 1. Would you open your elbow? No. I don't know what the chords are, but nope, my elbows are not open. In fact, that puts me out of alignment, and it makes it harder to play forte. So no, if I were playing that, things would be very relaxed and hanging from the shoulder, and then attacking like a snake. But you can see as I'm here, there isn't much space. The elbow's not out like that. Yeah. And there's plenty of sound. I could dig in even more than that without much effort. So. Okay. Oh, Lori. Yeah, Morton Lordson. Thanks, Faze, for writing that down in the chat. Faze, are we doing Wednesdays now for the future? Yes. So these sessions are usually the second and fourth Wednesday of the month, barring anything else from going on. Like we had November and December ended up being weird because of the holidays and where they fell. But our next session will be February 11th And then after that, February 25th, pretty sure I'll be in town for both of those. So we will continue with that. I have 5 minutes. Did I miss anybody's question? I will absolutely answer something else. One more. Because I have an appointment to get to. So I really can't be late. Chopin's Heart. I believe Laurie mentioned the Tchaikovsky's album for the young. And it's a great pairing with Schumann's album for the young. Yeah. Yeah, Frederick, I'm a sucker for chord clusters, especially with the voice. They sound so amazing. And Lordson doesn't... Maybe he's adjacent, cluster adjacent. But there are really gorgeous dissonances in his writing. Yeah. Oh, Chopin's Heart. Thank you for saying thank you. I do remember seeing that. So a theme and variation and how to approach learning that. Yeah, I have a big suggestion. And that is, do not learn more than one variation in a day. So I would take, don't try to go variation after variation. You maybe read it, sure, all on your first day. Find the most difficult variations, start there. All good practice sessions. We want to tackle difficult stuff, yeah. But I would urge you to not try to learn two variations on the same day. Because the risk is that they're going to be so similar that the brain is going to prefer the first one that you learn over the second. And so no matter how much time you spend on the second one, it's not going to stick as well as the first one. It's called interference. It's another thing, both in my course and in Molly Gebrian's book. I do have a module in my practicing course called Overcoming or Conquering Interference. That's instead of avoiding it forever, because we can't, we can selectively choose ways to pair things back to back that are very similar. But we can't do that until we know them pretty well. So, if you have two variations that begin very similarly, learn them separately on separate days to start with. And then when you want to test them, find anchors for yourself. How can you give yourself an anchor for the first variation and for the second variation? And that could be a mental thing. It could be a series of words. It could be a harmony. It could be one finger on one note. It's all. It doesn't need to be any bigger than that. We just need one anchor that sets us apart from then variation 1 and variation 2. And then we can remind ourselves, what's the anchor for 1? Play. And then jump. What's the anchor for 2? Play. Yeah. And then we have one thought that guides us to the correct path. And then we're separating those out. We're not risking that when we play variation 1, we're accidentally going to play variation 2, because we're giving ourselves something very conscious and very well defined. And we're telling ourselves that, repeating that, and it's something that you can do in performance. All you have to do is say, here's the next anchor, and you think it. And then you can walk through the whole thing from memory, and you won't have problems. And remembering our series of anchors is easier than it sounds. Yeah. Okay. I do have to run. This has been a great session. Thank you all for being here. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please hit the thumbs up button. Some of you that I haven't gotten to chat with before, I believe, like Chopin's Heart, was this your first stream? And if it was, welcome, and I hope to see you here again. And others of you that are returning, thanks again for being here. And wonderful questions today. Such great questions. And Brent, thanks for being here also. Fun chatting. Frederick, as always. And remember, the next stream will be February 11th. And I will see you all then. Enjoy music, enjoy practicing, and I'll see you in a couple weeks or in the comments or on the channel. All right. You too, Szczepan's Heart. Have a great rest of your day. Take it easy, everybody.